Good morning. This week, we started by talking about how to build the capacity of your board members so as to ensure that they support you in achieving your vision, your mission, and your goals for your organization. And we started by talking about, running a board assessment so that you can identify the gap within your current board and you know how better to bridge that gap, right? And we went on to talk about how to re-engage and remotivate current board members. Say, for example, you've assessed your board and you've seen that there's a gap within your current board, how to be able to re-engage them and remotivate them so that they can come back and support the organization. And we also looked at a part of assessment where we're able to identify a gap where we need to bring in board members to fill those gaps. So that's really what we're going to be talking about. How do you recruit quality board members into your organization to fill the gap you've seen through board assessment, right? Um, this topic is very important considering the fact that so many founders out there, so many charities, so many non-profits do not know the standard process to board recruitment. What we've seen in the marketplace is, non-profit founders just reaching out to people across their network, reaching out to people they feel they could help them, and then, just invite these guys into their board meetings, and somehow these guys are already part of the board, right? So there's no standard process to board recruitment, and that has really affected so many non-profits because, like I said at the beginning when we started this topic this week, how you bring in your board members determines how they get to engage and commit to your mission, right? So we want to talk about how do you bring them in the right way so that they can be committed, so that they can be able to follow through on the mission and the vision and the goals of the organization. So there's a standard process to board recruitment that has to be followed if you want your board members to commit, if you want them to be able to give you their best. If you bypass the standard board recruitment process, you're most likely going to have board members who are, detached in no time, board members who are not really committed, who don't understand their roles or what they are expected of. So, but with the right board recruitment process, you can establish this, this commitment. You can establish, the policies of your board into the hearts of your board members, so that when they come in, they automatically fall in line, unlike where they come in, without understanding what they have to do. So, what is the actual board recruitment process? On my screen, you'll see that I have a 7-step process to guide you through board recruitment. Right? If you want to be successful in board recruitment, you must take one step at a time across each of these 7 steps to ensure you bring in quality board members who have the skills, the expertise, and the passion to support you. So, the very first step in the process is what we call the board recruitment planning. This is very important. You don't just want to rush out there, going to bring in people into your board without knowing who you even need in the first place. So, board recruitment planning helps you identify the kind of board members you need, the roles you're expecting them to fill, how you intend to bring in these board members, what it's going to cost you, the tools and the resources you need to bring in these board members all have to be listed at the very beginning of the process. This is to ensure that you know exactly what you're going for, and when you find it, you found it, rather than just going in blindly. So once you're done with your board recruitment planning, the next step is what we call the resource and tool development. So there are resources and tools you're going to need throughout the process to be able to recruit these board members. Some of these resources and tools would be a board application form, your board interview questions, your board congratulatory letters, your board recruitment pack, your board recruitment manual containing the board agreement, the reference collecting form, your non-disclosure agreements, your conflict of interest forms. All these have to be ready before you launch out your board recruitment process, so that you are having these tools available for your board members or your prospective board members while they go through this process. It is very important. It shows professionalism. It shows that your organization is really well organized. So now you've created the tools you need for your outreach. The next step is to launch your board outreach. So there are different ways to launch your board outreach. You could tap into your personal network. You could, use online platforms like Tools, Idealist, and these different platforms to launch your outreach. You could reach out to people to refer you. Reach out to your network to send out your messaging. All that are different ways you get to launch your board outreach. But of course, our strategy is anchored on getting these people to fill up the board application form so that we can collect their information. And then once you've launched out your board outreach on LinkedIn, on these different platforms, reaching out to your network and tapping into your wider network, the next step is the board selection and interview phase. So they filled up the board application form. You have to go through those application forms to select those who align with the kind of board members you're looking to bring in, as you've planned at the very beginning. So you selecting this group of people, identifying the people who should come into the board, is the selection process. And then you have to invite them in for an interview by sending them a congratulatory email saying, you've been invited in for an interview. Come, let's have a conversation where you can know more about the board, and we could also ask you questions. So that's really the inviting to the interview process. And then when you go into that interview, you have to be able to ask questions. You have to be able to evaluate these applicants so that they truly have the values, the core ethics, the skills that you need on your board. So once you're done with the interview process, you have to select those who you're moving forward with. It could be 3 people, it could be 5 people, it could be 10 people, depending on the number you're looking to bring in, right? Once you've selected those people you're moving forward with, you have to move on to the 5th step, which is the background check. You need to be able to check the background of your prospective board, your board members, so that you know the kind of people you're bringing on, right? Of course, I'm not really a fan of segregating people based on their past history as regards being a convict or all that. But it's important you identify these key factors before you move on, because that may be a limiting factor for your board. Say, for example, you're about to be funded. A funder could do a background check on your board members and find that board members may not really be trusted. So you need to be able to do a background check. And once you've done that, you have to move on to the onboarding process for the new board members. So you've done your background check. You find that these people you've selected, they align with you. The next step is to onboard them. Onboarding them is where you introduce them to their commitments, their expectations, their responsibilities, the policies within the board. Really, this is, for example, those boards that want to enact 100% board giving. This is where we bring it in, so that board members know exactly what they're going into, and then there's an agreement they have to sign to at the end of that meeting to show that, yes, I'm committing to these policies, I'm committing to these commitments, I'm committing to these expectations and responsibilities. This step is very important so that board members know exactly what they are coming into, rather than coming in blindly. Once you've been able to onboard these new board members, the next step is the board introduction. This is where you now bring everybody in to meet both the old and the new board. So they get to introduce themselves, what they do, their passion, the skill set, the things they're looking to achieve through the organization. That's board introduction. It's very important to ensure that, your board members are able to mix up with each other. They know who is within the board. And, in that situation, you may find that people begin to collaborate, people begin to build network, and then you have a stronger board. So of course, after this stage is where you then move on to the strategic planning stage, which I'm going to start off with coming next week. So here you have the 7 clear processes that you have to go through to be able to bring in quality board members, right? You need to be able to plan, identify the kind of board members you need, what's going to cost you, where they are, the strategy to bring them in, the tools you need. Once you've done planning, the next step is to go create those tools you need to bring in these board members, so that you can have a credible process, right? Once you've created those tools, the next step is to launch your board outreach. Go where your board members are, the kind of board members you're looking for. If they are Christians, go to churches. If they are executives of companies, go to LinkedIn. You need to be able to go where the kind of board members are to go launch your board outreach. So once you're done launching your board outreach, the next step is to select those you think align and of course initiate your board interview process. Once you're done interviewing, run a background check to ensure that these guys are aligned before you invite them in for the onboarding session. Onboarding session is where you introduce them to their roles, their responsibilities, so that they can know exactly what they are coming into, including a commitment, 100% board giving if you want to be able to bring that in, and all that. Once you're done onboarding, the next step is to launch the board introduction, where both old and new board members get to meet each other. They introduce themselves, what they do, they're passionate about, and then they begin to build some sort of internal network within the board. This is how you bring in quality board members. This is how you bring in board members who are going to commit because they know what they've agreed to, they know what they are coming into, and are willing to give you the very best. So next week when I come on here, I'm going to talk about how to plan strategically with these new board members and old board members so that you all can have a plan that everyone can commit to within the organization so as to ensure the success of your non-profit. So until I see you again, it's going to be bye for now.